Have you ever wondered why someone, perhaps an ex-partner, a lost friend, or even someone who hurt you, still lingers in your thoughts, even after all this time? Why does this happen? In Zen Buddhism, there's an ancient teaching that explains this quiet suffering with surprising clarity. It says, when someone lives in your mind, it's not always about love or memory, but about something deeper that remains unresolved within you. Whether it's attachment, unhealed karma, hidden emotions, or a lesson your soul still needs to learn, these mental visitors are not accidents. They are signposts, teachers in disguise. And until we understand their purpose, we remain mentally entangled, replaying stories we long to forget. But there is a way out. Not by erasing the past or forcing forgetfulness, but by shifting how you relate to the thoughts themselves. In this video, you'll discover 7 profound reasons why someone won't leave your mind, as taught through the lens of Zen wisdom. More importantly, we'll explore the gentle, powerful steps Buddhism offers to free yourself, not from the memory, but from the suffering attached to it. Because the thoughts may stay, but your peace doesn't have to leave. Let's begin. True love, the kind that the Buddha spoke of, brings peace. It feels calm, compassionate, and free. But attachment, it's loud, it's anxious. It makes your heart race, not from joy, but from fear. Fear of losing them, fear of being alone, fear that your happiness depends on their return. You might catch yourself checking their social media, reliving old conversations, or imagining what could have been. These are not the signs of love, they are the symptoms of craving. Zen masters describe attachment as holding on to a burning coal, intending to throw it at someone else. But in the end, you are the one who gets burned. You see, attachment binds your identity to another person. You begin to believe that your self-worth, your future, your peace, all depend on them. And that's where the suffering begins. Because as long as your happiness is tied to something or someone outside of yourself, you are never truly free. Buddhist practice offers a gentle but powerful solution: loving kindness. It teaches us to love without needing to possess, to wish happiness for someone, without expecting anything in return. When we shift from clinging to blessing, from craving to compassion, something beautiful happens. Our hearts begin to heal. So if someone still haunts your mind, ask yourself honestly, is this love or attachment? One sets you free, the other holds you hostage, and the path to liberation begins with knowing the difference. Have you ever asked yourself, why won't this person leave my thoughts? Why, even after months or years, do they still live in the corners of your mind, appearing in dreams, memories, and sudden waves of emotion? According to Buddhist teachings, the answer may lie in unresolved karma. In Buddhism, karma isn't about punishment or reward. It's about completion. It's the energy of unfinished emotional business, lessons that remain unlearned, truths that have not yet been faced. When someone lingers in your thoughts, it may be because a karmic thread still ties you together, an invisible string pulling at your heart, whispering, "You're not done yet." Maybe they hurt you, and the pain was never fully processed. Or maybe you hurt them, and guilt quietly simmers beneath your awareness. Or perhaps they represented something greater, a turning point, a life lesson, a mirror showing you something about yourself you haven't yet embraced. Buddhist wisdom teaches that the people who occupy our minds most persistently are often our greatest teachers, not because of how they loved us, but because of what they stirred within us. They enter our lives as soul contracts, bringing opportunities to evolve, to grow, and to heal the unseen wounds. Instead of trying to forget them or push the thoughts away, ask yourself gently, what lesson is still unfinished? What emotion remains unprocessed? What part of me is still seeking closure? The mind's obsession isn't the enemy. It's a signpost pointing toward where your soul is asking for attention. Healing karmic energy isn't about cutting cords, it's about completing circles. And in Buddhism, that completion begins with awareness, compassion, and a willingness to sit with the discomfort until understanding arises. So the next time their face appears in your mind, don't push it away. Instead, breathe and ask, what truth are you here to teach me? That's where liberation begins. Have you ever noticed how certain people seem to trigger something deep inside you, whether admiration, jealousy, anger, or obsession? And strangely, these same people often stay stuck in your mind, long after the moment has passed. Zen Buddhism and modern psychology both point to a profound truth. Many of the people who haunt our thoughts are not just them, they're actually reflections of us. This is the power of the shadow self, the parts of ourselves we hide, deny, or repress. And when we bury these parts deep within, the mind finds ways to bring them back into the light. Often it does so by projecting them onto others. That confident coworker you can't stop thinking about, maybe they represent the courage you wish you had. That person whose flaws you obsess over, perhaps they mirror a part of yourself you haven't yet accepted. Your mind uses them like a screen, and your emotions are the movie playing out, not about them, but about you. Zen teachings guide us inward, asking, what is it about this person that triggers such strong reactions? What do they represent that I have not yet embraced within myself? Buddha taught that true awareness begins when we stop looking outward for blame or answers, and instead look inward with compassion and honesty. The more we reclaim our shadow, our hidden desires, our unacknowledged fears, our untapped strengths, the less power these mental projections hold over us. When you see someone not as a problem to fix, but a mirror to understand, healing begins. You integrate what was disowned. You welcome back what you once rejected. And then, the obsession fades. Not because they changed, but because you did. So the next time someone takes up space in your mind, pause and ask, what part of me are they reflecting back? Because sometimes the person you can't stop thinking about is really just a part of yourself waiting to be seen. Why do our minds keep returning to certain people again and again? Even when we try to move on, their presence lingers, like a story that refuses to end. In Buddhism, one of the deepest sources of this mental entanglement is something called attachment to outcome. We become obsessed not just with the person, but with what we want to happen with them. Maybe it's the hope of reconciliation. Maybe it's the fantasy of closure. Or perhaps it's the craving for recognition, revenge, or justice. Whatever the scenario, your mind replays it on a loop, holding tightly to one imagined ending. But Zen wisdom gently reminds us, clinging to outcomes creates suffering. Why? Because life rarely unfolds the way we script it. And the more tightly we grasp our expectations, the more pain we feel when reality doesn't match. The Buddha taught the beauty of accepting what is, instead of grasping at what should be. In Zen, this is called cultivating the beginner's mind, a mind that approaches each moment freshly, without demand or control. When thoughts of someone return again and again, ask yourself, am I stuck on a particular outcome? Am I trying to force a certain story to come true? By recognizing this pattern, we begin to soften. We stop fighting reality. We stop clinging to imagined futures. And in that release, we find peace. So if your mind is caught in the what-ifs and if-onlys, take a breath. Come back to now. The only true peace comes not from controlling the ending, but from accepting the present. Let go of the outcome and come home to freedom. Have you ever noticed how one thought about someone can snowball into an entire mental movie? One memory, one emotion, and suddenly you're reliving the past, rehearsing conversations, and spiraling into what-ifs. This happens when we fall into a trap Buddhism warns us about, identifying with our thoughts. The Buddha taught that you are not your thoughts. Thoughts are just passing clouds in the sky of your mind, temporary, shifting, and often unreliable. But when someone lingers in your head, it's usually because you've started believing that every thought about them is true, important, and yours. You think, I miss them, and it feels like a truth carved in stone. But what if you could gently shift your perspective and say, there's a thought about missing them? That small shift creates a powerful space between you and the thought. In Zen practice, This is the essence of meditation. Learning to observe thoughts without becoming entangled in them. To sit by the riverbank and watch your thoughts flow, without jumping in and getting swept away. When we stop believing every thought that appears, the obsessive loops begin to break. We stop feeding the fire of craving, regret, or longing. So the next time your mind drifts towards someone again and again, pause, breathe, and simply notice the thought. Don't fight it. Don't follow it. Just watch it come and go. Because peace doesn't come from stopping thoughts. It comes from not clinging to them. Remember, your thoughts are not who you are. You are the awareness behind them. And in that awareness is your freedom. When someone occupies your thoughts day after day, it can feel like they'll never leave. The feelings are intense, the memories vivid, the pain or longing seems endless, and in those moments, your mind begins to whisper a dangerous lie. This will last forever. In Buddhism, this is known as the illusion of permanence, one of the deepest causes of human suffering. We believe that how we feel right now will always be how we feel, that the attachment, the pain, the obsession are fixed, unchanging, eternal. But Zen teachings gently remind us everything is impermanent. Your thoughts will change. Your emotions will soften. The person who consumes your mind today may one day become a distant memory. Even the most intense longing loses its fire over time. But when you believe in permanence, you feed the storm. You give more energy to the thought, more meaning to the feeling, and that makes the person's presence in your mind even stronger. The Buddha taught that peace begins with recognizing the truth of change. Nothing lasts. Not pleasure, not pain, not even this mental fixation. So when thoughts of them return, don't panic. Don't assume they'll always be there. Instead, remind yourself, this too will pass. Breathe into the thought, watch it rise, and allow it to fall without holding on. You are not stuck. You are not broken. You are simply passing through a moment in time. And like every wave in the ocean, it will eventually settle. In the wisdom of impermanence, there is deep comfort, because no matter how heavy the mind feels today, freedom is already on its way. Have you ever asked yourself, why this person? Why do they still live in my mind, long after they've left my life? Maybe you've tried everything, cutting ties, deleting messages, distracting your thoughts, but they still return, quietly, powerfully, as if some invisible thread keeps pulling you back to them. According to Buddhist wisdom, this may be more than memory or emotion. It may be a sign of a spiritual assignment unfulfilled. Buddhism teaches that some souls enter our lives not to stay, but to awaken us. They come bearing lessons, often wrapped in heartbreak, challenge, or confusion. And until the lesson is seen, accepted, and understood, their presence lingers, not in reality, but in consciousness. This is not a punishment. It's a call to grow. Perhaps this person triggered something you needed to heal, a childhood wound, a buried insecurity, or a forgotten dream. Perhaps they stirred a part of your soul that had been asleep, or forced you to ask questions you never dared to ask. Who am I without them? What am I truly seeking? Where is my worth rooted? These are not small questions. They are the beginning of transformation. Zen reminds us, the people who disturb our peace the most are often those sent to reveal it, not because of what they did, but because of what they awakened within us. So instead of asking, how do I stop thinking about them? Try asking, what are they here to teach me? This one question changes everything. It shifts you from victim to student, from suffering to awakening. And in time, when the lesson is received, the energy completes itself. The person who once felt like a wound becomes a teacher, and their grip on your mind begins to fade, not with force, but with understanding. Some people remain in your thoughts not because something is wrong, but because something important is still unfolding. Honor the lesson, trust the process, and know this: every soul you meet is either a mirror, a messenger, or a master. So far, we've explored why certain people stay in your mind: attachment, karma, shadow, unmet outcomes, and deep spiritual lessons. But now, Let's gently shift from why to how. How do you finally free yourself from their hold? In Buddhism, the way out is never about force, forgetting, or fighting the mind. It's about transforming your relationship with the thought. Instead of resisting it, you learn to walk with it, consciously, gently, and with deep compassion. Let me share with you 5 powerful Buddhist practices to help you release obsessive thoughts and return to peace. 1. Mindful observation. Watch without judging. The first step is simple yet profound. Observe. When the thought of this person arises, don't resist it. Don't scold yourself. Just notice. Zen teaches that what you resist persists, but what you observe with calm awareness transforms. Imagine your thought like a leaf floating down a stream. You don't need to catch it, just let it pass. No story, no reaction, just presence. 2. Investigate with compassion. Gently ask why. Instead of pushing the thought away, ask, why are they still here? What's this thought trying to show me? Maybe it's unprocessed emotion. Maybe it's a lesson not yet learned. Approach this inquiry with kindness, not self-blame. The Buddha taught that wisdom grows through gentle curiosity, not judgment. Healing starts when you dare to look within. 3. Letting go through acceptance. Loosen the grip. Letting go isn't about forcefully forgetting. It's about releasing the grip. Buddhist practice reminds us, when we stop clinging, letting go happens naturally. Accept that this person is showing up in your mind. Allow them to be there, without attaching meaning, hope, or resistance. As Zen says, hold the thought like you'd hold a butterfly gently with open hands. 4. Redirect with intention. Use the thought as a bell. Every time this person enters your mind, let it be a cue to come back to the present. In Buddhism, even disturbing thoughts can become a bell of mindfulness. Feel your feet on the ground. Take a conscious breath. Come back to now. Use their memory not as a prison, but as a path to presence. Over time, they become less of a disturbance and more of a reminder. Return to yourself. 5. Practice loving kindness. Transform the energy. When thoughts of someone bring pain, transform that energy through metta, loving kindness meditation. Start by saying, may I be free from suffering. May I find peace. Then extend it to them. May they be free from suffering. May they find peace. You're not saying what they did was right. You're simply choosing compassion over obsession, forgiveness over fixation, and that sets you free. Bonus wisdom, the stone in the river. Imagine your mind as a river. This person is a stone dropped into it. At first, the splash is loud, the ripples large. But if you don't fight the disturbance, the river flows on. Eventually, the stone either settles peacefully or is carried away. You don't need to control it, just keep flowing. In Buddhism, freedom doesn't come from fixing every thought. It comes from realizing you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness watching them. So if someone won't leave your mind, try not to panic. Don't force it. Trust the path. Practice presence, compassion, and non-attachment, because what was once torment can become your doorway to peace. A real-world example of the Buddhist path to liberation from obsessive thoughts can be found in the deeply personal journey of Elizabeth Gilbert, best known for her memoir, Eat, Pray, Love. After a painful divorce and the collapse of a passionate but unstable love affair, Elizabeth found herself emotionally overwhelmed and mentally consumed by the same person over and over. She described sleepless nights, obsessive thoughts, and the desperate longing for clarity, closure, or reconciliation. Much like the teachings in Zen Buddhism, she realized that no amount of distraction, travel, or conversation could truly quiet her inner storm. What she needed was inner liberation, not external resolution. During her time in an ashram in India, Elizabeth began to practice daily meditation and self-inquiry. At first, sitting with her thoughts, especially those about her lost lover, felt unbearable. But she slowly learned to observe them without becoming them. She discovered the simple power of noticing. There's that thought again. Instead of, "I must fix this." Over time, by watching her mind with compassion and without judgment, she experienced what Buddhism calls non-attachment. She began letting go, not by erasing the man from her memory, but by softening the grip those memories had on her identity and future. She also practiced a form of loving kindness, sending forgiveness not only to him, but to herself. In her journal, she wrote prayers of peace for him. May he be happy, may he find peace. And just like the Buddhist practice of metta meditation, this shifted the emotional charge from craving and regret to quiet compassion. He no longer haunted her. He became, in her words, a teacher who had finished his lesson. Elizabeth's healing wasn't instant. It was a process, a spiritual unfolding. But by using the very steps outlined in the Buddhist path, mindful observation, self-inquiry, acceptance, redirection, and loving kindness, she moved from being trapped in mental torment to living from a place of freedom. Her story is proof that obsessive thoughts don't have to define us, and that the people who live in our minds don't have to control our peace. Like the Zen metaphor of the stone in the river, the man she once thought she could never forget eventually settled peacefully into the riverbed of her memory, still part of her story, but no longer disrupting its flow. The core message of this teaching is profoundly simple, yet deeply transformative. Peace does not come from controlling our thoughts or erasing painful memories, but from changing our relationship with them. In today's fast-paced, emotionally charged world, especially for those in midlife or beyond, who carry the weight of long relationships, past losses, and unresolved memories, this wisdom could not be more relevant. Many people at this stage of life find themselves haunted by what-ifs, past partners, family estrangements, or moments they wish they could rewrite. Our minds replay old scenes not because we choose to suffer, but because we haven't yet learned to sit with those thoughts without judgment, without trying to fix or flee from them. Buddhism offers a pathway that doesn't require you to forget, but to see differently. Through mindfulness, self-inquiry, acceptance, and loving kindness, we can begin to experience our mental burdens not as punishments, but as opportunities for awakening. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to silence your mind. You only need to stop grasping so tightly. What once felt like torment, a persistent memory, an unresolved relationship, a regret, can become a teacher guiding you toward emotional and spiritual maturity. And perhaps the most comforting truth for anyone, especially in the later chapters of life, is this: healing is not tied to age, it's tied to awareness. It's never too late to release what weighs you down, never too late to find inner peace. So if someone still lives rent-free in your mind, perhaps they're not a curse, but a spiritual invitation. An invitation to pause, reflect, and ask the deeper question, what am I still holding on to? And more importantly, am I ready to let it pass like a cloud across the sky and return home to myself? Imagine your mind as a flowing river, steady, expansive, and alive. Now picture this person you can't stop thinking about as a stone thrown into that river. At first, the stone makes a splash. It sends ripples outward, disturbing the stillness. You feel the shock, the disturbance, the emotional waves. And naturally, your first reaction might be to fight the disruption, to push the stone out, to stop the ripples, to force the river back to calm. But in Zen Buddhism, there's a deeper truth. If the river continues to flow naturally, it will find peace again. You don't need to remove the stone. You don't need to fight the current. Over time, one of two things will happen. Either the stone will settle to the bottom and become part of the riverbed, or the current will carry it away. The same is true for your thoughts. The more you fight them, the more turbulence you create. But if you allow them to rise and fall, if you keep flowing with mindfulness and presence, the mind settles. This is the essence of Buddhist practice, not control, but trusting the natural flow of awareness. You are not the splash, nor the stone. You are the river. So when someone disturbs your peace, breathe. Don't cling. Let the thought settle or drift as it's meant to, and in time you'll find your stillness again, not because they disappeared, but because you remembered how to flow.